What's up, Cardfighters? Ryan here from Vanguard Central, bringing you guys a brand new updated Darkface Deck Profile. Now this deck is a really gimmicky and funny deck, so just be warned.
Stand up, Vanguard!
Starting with our grade 3s, we are running 4 copies of Darkface. Darkface is of course the main boss of this deck, and he has a really great GB2 ability where you can Soul Blast 2. When something is placed on your opponent's rearguard circle, you can go ahead and rest that unit. So this gives you a lot of control, and the whole point of this deck is pretty silly because you want to go ahead and start ramping up the soul. And his second ability comes in really handy where you can go ahead and force rest 2 units, and if they're rested at the end of their turn, you can go ahead and draw a card. Next, I got 2 copies of Superior Mantis. It's kind of like a tech card since I really like his free Dark Device skill. Basically, it's GB1 Dark Device if nothing's in the same column standing. You basically get a free stun and stun one of the rear guards. And of course, it's really good because his first ability is an on-place counterblast one, which you typically don't want to use too often since CBs are very expensive in this deck. And so it helps a lot just to slow down a lot of aggro decks. And then I got one tech copy of Longhorn Hunter. Longhorn Hunter is there just to really slow down decks because it force rests units as well and gives it a nice, can't intercept and can't stand the next stand phase. Moving on to our grade 2s, I'm playing 4 copies of Punish Stag. Punish Stag is all around a great card simply because it's free. It's just a Dark Device ability, so like I said, if nothing else is standing in the same column, this includes open rearguard circles since nothing is standing. He gets plus 2k, so he becomes an 11k beater for that turn, and he basically gives it the Darkface skill. It doesn't force rest it, unfortunately, but it does give it the opponent's rearguard a skill, where if it's rest at the end of the turn, they can you can draw a card, and then it can't stand. It doesn't force rest it, but it gives a skill where it can't stand the next stand phase, so it's still pretty good. And next we got 4 copies of Buster Mantis. Buster Mantis is the basically 12k beater as long as everything on their field is rested, which is going to be happening most of the time unless your opponent, leaves one standing, but then our starter is going to go ahead and take care of that problem and force rest it anyways. And next I got 2 copies of Machining Armor Beetle, and I know a lot of you are thinking like, why are you playing Armor Beetle? Simply because of its skill for the early game and also even late game, because the whole point that I see in this deck is just to ramp a lot of soul and get ready to start controlling their board and let them not play the game with Darkface. And so Machining Armor Beetle is going to go ahead and get that for us because I'm trying to make a lot of value out of a little bit of value, if that makes sense. And moving on to our grade 1s, we're running 4 copies of Star Shield. Star Shield, of course, to get those unflips since counterblasts, like I said, are very expensive in this. Each CB is very important. And next I got 4 copies of Little Dorcas. It's going to be our stride fodder since this is a stride based deck and we are playing only 7 grade 3s. You want to stride as much as possible. 4 of the new card Vulcan Laferte. This is a great card because it stops people from intercepting, and also if you have a Darkface Vanguard, he does gain resist basically, where he can't be chosen by card effects, which is really neat. And his Dark Device skill comes in handy a lot, where at the beginning of your main phase you can also just throw him into the soul and you unflip one. So you get really nice balance with the counterblast and balance with soul, which is great. And next I'm running 4 copies of Machining Mosquito. So this is actually a pretty heavy grade 1 lineup. But the whole reason I want is to just ramp the soul, like I said, early enough, rush a little bit, and then go ahead and control their board after when they try to retaliate, because that's really the whole point of this build. So I'm playing the 4 Mosquitoes because what I like doing is playing the Mosquito first. You can go ahead and Soul Charge 1, and then playing the Armor Beetle, sending this into the soul since you already used up its value, and then stun one of their rear guards. Moving on to our triggers, we are playing 8 crit. 4 of them are supposed to be Bomb Scissor. Right now I actually don't have them, unfortunately, since my locals is out of them. It's been a while too, so I'm pretty sad. But this is basically supposed to be Bomb Scissor. And I'm playing 4 draw. Yes, I know the last one's not a draw. Like I said, they ran out of this too, which is really weird because it's a common. We're playing 4 draw because it has a really nice skill, basically Margot Clone. And it helps a lot with the soul and draws. You want to be, you want to be able to draw the pieces you need to slow down other people's decks. And then 4 Machining Honeycomb. Basically heal triggers because you want to be able to G-guard. And our starter is going to be Rosenberg. The reason why I'm playing Rosenberg over Crime Bug, simply because he can force rest anything. Because a lot of people like to keep stuff standing so that they don't have to get the skill or rest it with like Punish Stag, for example. Which is funny because a lot of decks, a lot of cards like Darkface, for example, can force rest units. But sometimes that force rest on Rosenberg's second skill really comes in handy And also I really like the fact that you can, it's free, put them into the Soul for Dark device, and then you can go ahead and choose one of their units, and it can't be chosen by card effects, and they can't intercept. So it helps your Darkface plays go off really well. Moving on to our G-Zone, I'm playing 3 copies of Darkface. It's kind of weird. I know you're thinking, why are you only playing 3 copies? Why not just play 4? Simply because there's other stride units that you can go into that are just simply better. But Darkface is still not a bad card because it sets up really well with your on-stride skill. So basically it's pretty much the same as Rosenberg, where they can't intercept and they can't use it for card effects, and for every unit that you choose, he does get 5,000. So if you choose 2, which is how the optimal play is supposed to be, with like Staggle Dipper, which you flip over one of them, since he does flip over anything, you want to be able to flip over itself because it's for every unit you choose up to the equal number of Darkface face up. And then after that, we got 2 Obturandus. Like I said, there are better things to go into, such as Obturandus, because this card is just nuts. It's basically counterblast to discard a card, and then you can go ahead. So it's basically counterblast to discard a card. Your opponent can't call rearguards at all. No superior calling, no normal calling, nothing. So it really slows down a lot of decks that need rearguard support, which is great. So like I said, there's just generally better things to go into when you don't really have to be going Darkface. Like, you can be going into Obturandus at least twice. Since the counterblast 2 is pretty hefty, but we do get a little bit of unflips with Vulcan and the PGs, which really help. And then we're playing 3 copies of Staggle Dipper. Staggle Dipper is typically our first stride. I like playing 3 because I usually go into the first one and then I go ahead and just flip anything else. And if you end up having to play some weird long game, sometimes Staggle Dipper can be your opener, and he can also be your closer, which is nice because if your whole opponent's field is rested, or if they have 5 units, you can choose 3 units and they get plus 5k. So you can make some pretty solid numbers with that. Next we got 2 copies of Stun Beetle. Stun Beetle is a really funny card. I feel like that should just be Tecton in any Mega Colony deck, because if it does go off, you can just go ahead and shut down your opponent for an entire turn, which is great. And then 2 copies of Paraspear. Paraspear is just a free draw, because as long as your opponent has 3 units, you can go ahead and force rest everything, and you get that free draw plus 5k. So you swing for 31 unboosted. And moving on to our G guards, I am playing 1 Gristfort. Gristfort is something that I really like in this deck. It's basically like the Beetle Flare is what I call it. Kind of like Defeat Flare, where you go ahead and rest the back row, and then it gets plus 5,000 for every 2 rested. So if they have 4 rested units, it's a plus 10,000 shield, which is pretty neat. So Gristfort does slow down a lot of aggro decks that need rearguard power, such as Sanctuary Guard, since you can go ahead and rest their back row. And then next I got 1 copy of Dark Element Dismal. Dismal's there simply just to stop plays like Laurel and the Cross. You don't have a lot of stuff that you want to be keeping. I guess the best card that you want to keep is our 12k beater. And then lastly, we got 2 copies of Scarab Ghast, because it's a very, very easy 20k shield. Thanks for watching, guys. That was our Darkface deck profile. Let me know what you guys think down below about this gimmicky deck with the weird ratios in grade 2s and 1s and 3s. But I just really felt like ramping Soul was something funny to do and just stopping my opponent rather than focusing on closing a game, because if I can just stall it long enough, then maybe I can win, because this deck was pretty much just designed to mess with my opponent. But anyways, guys, that was our deck profile. Like I always say, like our videos, comment down below if you guys have any questions, and subscribe for more content. Vanguard Central out.